There are many ways something could come between you and a good time. Eating too much before a night out. If you're my height or shorter, your height might be that thing. In 2007, movie production company New Line Cinema was that one thing, that one entity that came between you as a sneakerhead and a great time. Let me take you back to 2007. I was still in high school, getting rejected by crushes left and right, and somewhere in a universe far, far away in Beaverton, Oregon, Nike was cooking up a horror pack of sneakers, which included a Jason Voorhees SB Dunk High, and fun fact, there was actually a low top that never officially released, but some samples do exist. That's another story for another day. A Dawn of the Dead Air Trainer 1, and to complete the trifecta was the Freddy Krueger Nightmare on Elm Street SB Dunk Low. Now, just like my romantic life in high school, sneakerheads around the world were about to feel the pain of rejection by the hands of New Line Cinema. Here's what happened. New Line Cinema owned the rights to Nightmare on Elm Street, which of course features the antagonist Freddy Krueger. The movie first came out all the way back in 1984, the same year that Michael Jordan was drafted into the NBA, and the colorway for the Freddy Krueger Nike Dunk Low was leaked ahead of time, so they decided to send a cease and desist letter to Nike. And not wanting to f around and find out, Nike pulled production, and rumor has it, Nike employees were given the order to set the shoes on fire. But you can't burn them all. And honestly, it does sound a little bit ridiculous. Like, imagine some executive at Nike calling like some factory lead in Asia and going, I want you to set fire to those Freddy Krueger dunks. It doesn't make sense. Why not just like throw it in some big garbage truck, or like recycle them, or do something that doesn't involve burning a whole bunch of shoes? But for the sake of the story, let's just say that rumor is true. Now, some Nike employees were able to sneak some pairs out, including samples and prototypes, and a store in Mexico was actually able to drop 26 pairs of the shoe early, I'm sure by complete accident. Now, it's hard to know what exactly the number is. There's probably a ton of replicas that have been produced for this shoe. All we need to know is this shoe is not supposed to be out there. Some made it out. So this forced exclusivity and limitation on production actually skyrocketed the value of this shoe. So if you go on the secondary market, you'll see this shoe go for about $20,000, and the prototype actually uses suede on the overlays instead of leather that made its way as the final version of the shoe. It also uses black splatter instead of red, and some of the samples that do exist out in the ether, they have oil stains on them, and that kind of plays into the story of Nike employees having to set fire to a bunch of these shoes. Some samples actually had these stripes a bit wider, and it had the red and green splatter on the overlays. And the official shoe that was supposed to come out, that we were supposed to have a chance to take an L on, it had red and green on the base layer. That was a nod to the character's iconic sweater. The silver swoosh, that was a nod to Freddy Krueger's bladed glove. And of course, it came with custom insoles that were supposed to look like burnt flesh, mimicking Krueger's face. But honestly, to me, it kinda looks more like a slab of raw meat or something. And now, even though this shoe is basically impossible to get, it's not completely out of reach. You just gotta have Jenner or Kardashian type pockets to get your hands on these. Because once upon a time, sneaker collector Chris Robinson actually sold a pair of these shoes to Kylie Jenner, and he actually sold a size 10.5 women's. But we later found out that Kylie Jenner actually gifted this to Kendall Jenner. And of course, her wearing the shoe made its way onto her Instagram story. I'm sure a shoe that's worth 5 figures is like me going to McDonald's and buying a single French fry. But if you're a peasant like me, you could always settle for the Air Max 95 Freddy Krueger colorway that actually did come out in 2020. Or you could always take a more difficult route and become a professional athlete or artist, and maybe Kendall Jenner will end up dating you and gift you her pair. And now if you're sitting there looking at this shoe and you're like, these things don't look like they're worth 5 figures. There's so many other better colorways. You have to remember, so many things in this industry is based on the story behind the shoe and like a narrative premium. A plain white t-shirt may only be worth $15, but a plain white t-shirt that Michael Jordan once wore is worth $15,000. So even though when I personally look at this shoe in a vacuum, just sitting there on a shelf without the story, remove the lore and mystery behind it, that red and green does kind of look like a Christmas tree. I personally don't really care about the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. I can absolutely understand why it's fetching the price it does on the secondary market. In this story, it might seem like we have an obvious villain in New Line Cinema, a Freddy Krueger of many sneakerheads' dreams, if you may. But as a creator myself, I kind of do understand the importance of intellectual property, so I can sympathize a little bit. I'm only about $1 billion short of being able to sympathize fully and completely understand how they felt back in 2007, but laws around intellectual property do exist for a reason and they should be enforced. But part of me does feel like if they just let Nike do their thing, drop the shoe, release the colorway, the hype would have been unreal. It might have caused like a surge or resurgence in the popularity of the entire franchise alone. Might have pulled a whole cohort of people that were never really into horror movies like myself into the franchise and get them interested. Imagine that novel concept. Nike wins, New Line Cinema wins, but in reality, nobody won. Now Nike literally as about a week ago just reported their fiscal year earnings of 2025 and they're down 10% compared to last year. And we know in 2025, at least for Jordan Brand, they're bringing back a bunch of grails to try to bend that declining trend upwards. So perhaps in the near future, Kendall Jenner and maybe a handful, maybe 100 people will never really know the full number, but a very minuscule amount of people in this world won't be the only ones that have their hands on their Freddy Krueger Nike SB Dunk Low. So that's it. Thanks for watching. So inclined. Like, subscribe, comment, all the good stuff. And remember, tomorrow may never come, so wear your shoes.